On the Spot brings you How to Climb a Mountain. This is Bob Anderson of the National Film Board. If you'd like to know how to climb a mountain, you've come to the right place. We have films to show you taken with the Alpine Club of Canada. One of a climb up Martin's Peak in the Rockies, and another of more detailed how-to-do-it practice climbs on Grouse Mountain near Vancouver, including a climb up a steep rock pitch called Devil's Leap that's really worth waiting around to see. I've never seen anything like it. Why people climb mountains is a poser. Maybe you'll find the answers, or some of them, here. Ice River Valley in Yoho National Park in the Canadian Rockies is summer camp for the Alpine Club of Canada. Who are these people? Who climbs mountains? Your teacher, your secretary, your newspaper editor, your insurance man, your lawyer. Why do they climb mountains? That's not easy to answer. Certainly it's a demanding sport, and it seems a dangerous one. Although the Alpine Club of Canada, with over 800 members from Canada and the United States, has been climbing since 1906 with never a fatality. You can put your name down for any climb you like. But if the committee doesn't feel you're up to it, a smaller mountain for you, or snow school and rock school and easy climbs until you're ready. The pack horses have work to do, rain or shine, but the climbers can relax and wait for climbing weather with a Swiss guide who can teach a folk dance as easily as how to climb a mountain. And the rain is no dampener to spirits when you're looking forward to climbs to come. The pack horses carry supplies to the high camp from which some of the climbs are made, and the climbers are out every day. This is the ambassador to Canada from Israel, a novice to painting but not to mountains. The peaks draw the climbers out: Mount Chancellor, the Good Sirs, Martin Peak, through flowered upland meadows to Hanbury, Ennis, Vaux, Allen, and Zinc Mountain. A high camp was set up at Zinc Gulch, a few thousand feet above the main camp, to make it more possible for climbers to tackle the Good Sirs and other peaks rising out of the valley. Flapjacks, tossed by an expert over an open fire, are as good a meal as you could wish for after a day's climb. And if the guests won't actually come to dinner, still they're with you in spirit. The food looks good. Not all expert rock climbers are expert at flipping pancakes. But where good fellowship prevails, you're prepared to settle for something less than perfection. And the mountains are there to think about for tomorrow's climb. With 125 eager climbers in the Alpine Club camp, the mountains are kept busy. With a 10,000-foot peak as your objective, an early start is indicated. Peggy Hind of Calgary and Ernie Smith of Vancouver are off to climb Martin Peak, led by Peggy's husband, Bob. This tiny creek will become a torrent later this day when the sun gets at the snowfields up in the mountains. The sun still hasn't come over the ridge as they hit the snow line at 5 a.m. The snow is hard and crusted from the night's low temperatures at these heights, and Bob Hind kicks footholds as he leads his party diagonally up the steep slope. The rope comes into play where there is danger of crevasses in the ice under the snow, and when stiff rock climbs are ahead. The rope is your insurance against the slip that could be your last one. Colored glasses and skin cream are needed too now. Protection against the sun that has come over the ridge and onto the snow. Slowly and steadily, with ice axes ready, up the sloping shoulder of the mountain. Back at camp, track is kept of the progress of the climbers on the peaks. There are other climbers to keep track of, too, on the Good Sirs and other mountains, while our party scales Martin Peak. On the brink of nowhere, with all eternity below, up the steep rock pitches, carefully, one after the other, working ahead on the slack of the rope, with nothing but the rope and your skill and your strength between you and the valley below. "9,000 feet up, with crumbling rock underfoot and overhangs to surmount. The leader belays the next man with the slack of the rope around his shoulders, ready to stop a possible fall. And now the final pitch, sky high, with the leader choosing the route the others will follow. And there they are on the peak of the mountain, at the stone cairn left by other climbers to mark the true top. And now, if you please, sign the visitor's book, left in the cairn by the club to record the climbs made to the tops of mountains. You, too, are welcome to sign the book if you care to drop in at this mountain top. And now the climb is over, except for getting down again. And what do you see on the map and around you, now that you've finally gotten up here? Why, another peak that you can climb next time. When you see movie shots on a mountain top, it may not occur to you at the time, but someone else that you didn't see was there to take the pictures. I'd like you to meet the man who climbed with a camera this mountain so that you could see the mountain climbed. He's Len Chatwin of the Film Board, not a cameraman by profession, but a mountain climber of many years' persuasion, who always takes along with him on his climbs a camera attached to the top of his ice axe, the axe that you use for climbing. Well, Len, I'm used to a little heavier equipment than this. Do you mean to tell me you got all these pictures with just that little camera?
That's right, Bob. If you were up there on those rocks clambering around, you wouldn't want to carry any more than this either.
I'm not sure I'd even like to be there.
Well, this is just a 5-pound magazine 16mm camera on a little pan head which neatly fits on the top of the axe on a screw thread that I had specially put on there. And it maneuvers very neatly and quickly
You just balance yourself wherever you happen to be and take your pictures.
Well, it isn't quite that simple. As a matter of fact, getting steady pictures on a rickety ice axe and worrying about the focus and exposure and the loading of the camera and then making sure you're ready to get the pictures when the party is in action.
Because you don't want any second takes up there.
You certainly can't get them.
Len, when you were making these shots on these very exposed and very dangerous-looking ridges, were you roped up yourself to someone else?
I certainly was. As a matter of fact, Fred Parks of Vancouver, who was leading the rope I was on, would follow the other party sometimes, and then at times he would pass them and make it possible for me to shoot down on them.
How long did it take you to make the climb?
17 hours.
Ooh.
As a matter of fact, a party of 6 would do this peak, about 10,000 feet, in 12 hours normally.
You held them up with your filming?
Slightly. We were pretty late getting back for dinner that night.
Len, did you have a chance to enjoy yourself at all when you were up there doing all this work?
Why, certainly. Mountaineers always enjoy climbing mountains.
Stop. I'll ask you next why people climb mountains. Thank you, Len Chatwin. Good climbing to you. Now to Grouse Mountain, near Vancouver, for practice climbs with some good how-to-do-it information on how to climb a mountain. Fred Davis and the film board crew are there to show you around.
How's your butterfly knot, Sylvia? Well, you tie that the way I showed you, will you?
Yes.
How about you, Fred?
Afraid I'm not doing very well.
Do you know how to tie bowline?
No.
You just take a loop in your rope at your waist, put your thumb on it. Put the short end up through it, round behind the main rope, and back into the hole again.
I see.
And then pull it snug, tight enough to be snug around your waist, but not too tight. And then take a couple of half hitches, like this. 1, 2. So.
Fine.
Now, as you come up, watch each foothold and handhold carefully, and be sure, as you're coming, to let out the rope. Carefully, you see, just one loop at a time. Watch the rope. Be sure you have one arm's length of rope ahead of you. And then when you come around, watch any loose rocks there are. That's good. Keep the rope fairly tight. Don't let it drag on the rock. Out on that ledge. That's good. Up on here. Fine. Nice work. Come on, Sylvia, that's fine. We'll find some good handholds just above. That's fine. That's a good handhold. Now your foot over to the right. That's good. That's fine. Just keep her rope well free. That's good. Dandy. That's good. There's some good, very good footholds there. Fine. Now come just a little bit over to your right, I think.
My right?
Yes. You sure you have a good foothold there now? That's good. Hold on with your hand. Fine. Oh, be careful now. Fine. That's good. Now you see what it is to have a good tight rope.
Say.
Nice work.
Mrs. Mundy, what's John up to next?
John, I think, is going to go over the overhang. Sometimes, on a very difficult rock climb, we run into overhangs. They're a very special part of climbing to negotiate. Frequently, we have to use pressure holes, friction holes. Friction holes underneath and friction holes on top. Leaning well out from the overhang, the strength of the arms is used until the legs are able to take on the climb. Pressure hold on the elbow, pulling the body well up onto the cliff where there is a ledge big enough to stand on.
They're going to climb a fairly difficult rock. Gertrude Smith is the end man. Ian Kay is the second on the rope. and Fred Parks is the leader. The leader is now reaching a point where he can belay himself. That is, he's tying a knot around a nub of rock, holding himself. He is now in a position and ready to bring up the second on the rope.
There seems to be quite a bit of rope. What would be the maximum number you have on there? On
Well,
a rope?
3 is a good number
isn't
for
it?
a
It's
rock
not
climb, yes. You notice the rope is kept fairly taut at all times, but the second man is not being pulled up.
Well, if Ian falls, can Fred hold him?
Oh, yes. You'll notice that he doesn't allow any slack in the rope, and the rope is over his back, which provides friction should anyone slip. Now they're ready to bring the third man up. You'll notice that both Fred and Ian are belayed.
There's a good handhold over there to the right.
You'll notice the climber moves steadily but slowly on these pitches.
What kind of a knot is that around Fred's?
He has a bowline on a bite. You'll notice that there are 2 points of support. Well, now, that's how one type of rock climb is being done. Shall we go over and see John Dudra do some rappelling?
Keep your feet wide apart to maintain your balance. Your front hand also helps you keep your balance. Your rear hand controls your speed of the descent. By keeping tight grip on the rope, you decrease your speed and increase your friction. For a jump, you let go of the rope completely and come down friction-free. Keep your body perpendicular to the rock, not too close like this, because you lose your balance and fall face in. By gripping the rope too tightly, you come to a stop. By letting a slack run through, you come down quicker.
Well, we've seen a lot today. How about something to eat?
That's a good idea. After seeing all this energy expended, I've worked up an appetite.
They'll be quite happy. You always feel as if you have more. That's true. And put it down what combination? You like some lunch?
Oh, this is for me, is it?
Well, I don't think we should do that. Well, let's put on a few.
This display of technique has been very interesting, but just what prompts you people to climb mountains in your spare time? How about you, Mrs. Mundy?
Oh, I think the sheer love of the mountains chiefly, and then the views for photography, all up on the mountains and from the summits.
That sounds reasonable. How about you, Wendy?
Well, like Phil, I love the mountains, and there's a real thrill to reaching the top of a mountain when you finally get through the bush and rock.
And Ian, I suppose you agree with Wendy and Mrs. Mundy, do you?
Yes, I think that about covers it. You also have, of course, the joy of accomplishment and extremely pleasant and attractive surroundings.
Well, what about you 2 girls? Don't you find that mountain climbing gets a little strenuous at times?
No, not really. I find that if I go on trips fairly often, I can keep pretty fit. I mean, some weekends there may be long trips or even just a day trip. I think you can keep fit that way.
And then in the winter time we go ski mountaineering, which, though my brother doesn't think much of my skiing, helps to give one the same feeling of well-being and achievement, too, that one gets through mountain climbing.
Ernie, you're an insurance man. Does that mean that you take out a policy every time you go mountain climbing?
Oh, hardly. To me, it's a very safe sport, and also a lot of fun. And your climbing companions soon become your lasting friends.
They'll be quite happy. You always feel as if you have more. That's true. And put it down what combination? Yes. Lunch?
Oh, this is for me, is it?
Well, I don't...
Having demonstrated some relatively simple rock climbs, rappelling, and surmounting overhangs, a team of 3 from the party is tackling a ridge route. John is the leader, followed by Gertrude, and then Ernie.
One of the most important parts of a climber's equipment is the rope. It is the lifeline which holds the party together, and it should be taken care of. After you come down from a climb, you should remove the knots from the rope and straighten out the kinks, and then coil it.
They've just completed what is called a pitch, one section of the climb on this ledge. And now the leader will prepare to start off for the final climb to the top. As a rule, when you have a team of 2 men and 1 girl, usually the girl is third. This enables the second man to act as a safety point for the leader. And if necessary, if the girl is not too strong, when the 2 of them reach a belay point or reach the top, if necessary, they can haul the girl up bodily if she's having trouble. The leader, of course, has the toughest job of the 3, since his anchor point, or belay, is below him. In the case of a fall, of course, he would drop the distance of his position on the rope down below the belay point. This is a particularly dangerous and difficult climb, since there's very little to hold on to, either with the feet or hands. Mr. Parks, is it considered bad mountain climbing technique to use your knees?
Generally speaking, it is. The reason being that your knees are liable to slip on the rock. But in that particular spot, the only way he could get up was to grip with one knee on either side of the rock, just as though he were riding a horse.
So then it's permissible to use anything at all to grab on with if you're in that kind of a spot, is it?
That is true.
Now, are both the other climbers, that's the belay point, is it, for the leader?
That's the only belay point available on this particular pitch.
Now, the leader there isn't wearing rubber-soled shoes. He has the climbing boots on. Does that present any kind of a risk?
Well, on that particular type of rock, the nail boots will hold quite well, though they also hold better in case the rock is wet. There's bits of wet moss that you can see here and there, and he has decided that on this particular pitch, he's better off with nail boots than running shoes.
Now, what is the point of that hammering on the cliffside there?
John is driving in a piton, the long iron spike that we showed you before, with a ring in the end of it. And once he's got that in, he'll run his rope through the snap ring. Then, if he should chance to fall, he cannot fall any lower than that piton.
You mean to say that small piton is strong enough to hold him? That's his only anchor?
That piton will take more stress than his body could ever bear.
Going again.
Now, you see that he can only fall a foot or two instead of the 30 feet that he might have fallen before.
And the remaining 2 in that team, they will have to follow the route that he has taken.
That is correct, and when the second person reaches the belay point of the piton, they will have to unsnap the ring and fasten it again behind them. Now he's on the final ridge. He's practically there.
Now John, the leader, reaches the peak. Once on top, he makes ready to belay the second man. Here the second climber, Gertrude, is making her ascent of the final pitch. Does she follow the route that the leader has taken?
Yes, she must do, because the piton is holding her
Where's the
to
one?
that course. And undoubtedly, John has picked the best way anyhow.
Did you go to the right, Danny? To the left. Okay.
The climber can get instructions from the leader. Can she at any time?
Oh, yes, and she's very glad to get them. That's the advantage of having a leader.
I'll find your
Tells you where the
handhold.
various handholds are, where to put your feet next, and so on.
I
No,
suppose when
I'm
you're
just finding your handhold.
in the middle of a climb like that, your vision isn't too wide. You don't have too good an idea just where to go next.
No, she's right on the face there, and she can't get away from it to look at it even the way we can.
I can't quite reach the one you said. Maybe... Okay.
Now, would you say that she's in difficulty at this point?
She had a tough spot there, and she got actual assistance from the rope to surmount that short pitch.
In that case, the leader was actually pulling her weight rather than just keeping the rope taut. Is that so?
That is correct. Perhaps as much as anything, the fact of holding her safely into the rock.
To the left.
In a climb of this type, particularly at this point when you're roughly 1,000 feet above that valley floor, the element of danger, does that bother the climber?
Not a bit. She isn't looking down at the valley. She's looking at the rock a few inches away from her eyes, and that's all she thinks about.
Of course, she has the added confidence of knowing that she has a belay point right in the face of the rock, as well as assistance from the leader at the top, eh?
That is so. Now she's reached the piton, and we'll have to unsnap that ring before she can go any higher.
Is the trick here to keep as close to the rock face as possible?
Well, you must have your feet close, but she keeps her body away from it. She doesn't want to have a large area that might easily slip against the rock.
Over onto the ridge?
So the ideal position then is to have two safe toe holds and to be gripping something with either hand.
She's demonstrating the ideal position right now. Doing it very well.
Can't find the other one.
Once this is done, the leader takes up the slack, and the climber, thus anchored, is able to reach the top unassisted.
Maybe you're a little closer now to understanding why some people climb mountains, and also why others don't. The climbers you saw scaling Devil's Leap on Grouse Mountain were members of the Vancouver section of the Alpine Club of Canada. On the Spot is a production of the National Film Board. The Rockies climb was photographed by Len Chatwin. The Vancouver practice climbs were directed by Walford Hewitson, photographed by Donald Wilder, and narrated by Fred Davis. The films were edited by Marion Meadows, the supervising editor was David Mayerovitch, and the producer, Robert Anderson. On the Spot takes you down to the Atlantic next week, to Lunenburg, home of the Blue Nose.